Hi guys, my name is Spencer and welcome to Sphinx Reads, and today I will be reviewing Steelheart by Sanderson. Going right into the review, Steelheart is a YA dystopian slash sci-fi novel. It is the first book in the Reckoners trilogy. And the premise of the book is that a supernatural event or phenomenon called calamity causes a bunch of people to have superpowers, and those powers quickly corrupt those people and they become supervillains called epics. We follow our main character David Charleston, whose father was killed by the most powerful epic named Steelheart when he was just a little kid. Nobody knows what Steelheart's weakness is, but just before David's father was killed by Steelheart, David sees Steelheart bleed on his cheek. He narrowly escapes that encounter, and his mission becomes to basically avenge his father and kill Steelheart, find out his weakness. And so he spends the next decade or so studying different epics and what their weaknesses are, and he starts seeking out this group called the Reckoners, who are rebels. They are against having the epics rule over the entire world, and so the mission of the Reckoners is to kill basically all the epics. This is a book that I actually read many years back, and I loved it the first time around, and so I decided last month, as part of my Sanderson sort of readathon for this year 2021, that I would finally reread this and read the rest of the trilogy. I previously rated this book 5 stars, but I expected going into this again that I would rate it 3 stars, mainly because I've read quite a few negative reviews recently, and I just felt that I'd grown quite a bit as a reader since I've read it the first time. But pretty much as soon as I started, I knew that there was absolutely no way this book was just gonna be 3 stars, because it was super fast-paced and the plot was just really engaging. In fact, it felt like watching a Marvel movie. And even though I remember quite a bit from the first time I read this book, I was still very much engaged and invested in the story. Like, it had me hooked almost immediately, and it pretty much didn't let up until the end. Now, even though I like this story, this seems to be kind of a less popular book in terms of Sanderson's works, and I totally get that because of the following reasons. First is that the humor of the main character David and also one of the characters named Cody, they are both intentionally very corny, and they make like really lame jokes and really cheesy comments and just overall just a little bit cringy jokes and humor. I read a Goodreads review of someone who actually liked the humor in this story, and they said that it actually made the characters more endearing to them. And so I think that the humor has the potential to make the characters endearing. However, I think for the most part, the humor is probably one of the weakest points of this book. This is also very much a plot-driven story. Even though we follow an interesting set of characters, they're very cartoonish, they're very like comic-like. Like, David meets this group of Reckoners and they're very like stereotypical, like futuristic sci-fi dystopian cast. And so because the characters are like that, they're kind of harder to connect with. We don't see a lot of their emotions and motivations. They just kind of do a lot of stuff. It's a little difficult trying to have a connection with any of them really, even the main character. This is a fast-paced book with a lot of plot twists pretty much in every chapter. And while they are interesting, they're kind of underwhelming. Like, the story's a page-turner, you want to know what's going to happen next, but when it actually happens, there's not a lot of shock value to the reveals that happen in this book. There's also a romantic subplot in this book that is just kind of cringy and awkward, and some people might find that funny, but for me and for a lot of people, I think, it was just kind of awkward and just weird, and yeah. The romantic subplot and the humor in this book are not necessarily the best. I will say that even though this book is the first in the trilogy, it can stand as a standalone. Like, you have a complete story arc that goes on here. It only sets up a little for the rest of the series, and there are a few questions that remain unanswered. However, it does feel like a complete like story arc. And honestly, if you are like the majority of people who've read this book who haven't really liked it and like were super invested in the story, you might find that you don't really care enough to know what happens next in the rest of the series. Obviously, since I haven't read the second book for such a long time, obviously, I wasn't really invested enough to just immediately read the next book. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I do see why a lot of people would not like this book, and I already gave my reasons, but I definitely liked it more than I expected to the second time around reading it. But that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry that the lighting like slowly dimmed because it was almost the end of the day and I'm too lazy to turn on the light. But be sure to chat with me more in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on this book, or if you think you're gonna pick it up if you haven't read it already. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please forget to subscribe so you can do it later, and have a great day.